Hello and welcome to Dog Talks. We're here to talk about fellowship today, and this time I do have the dogs with me, although we're kind of up there in the side window. Maybe I can have them stop and say hello here for a moment. Say hello, boys. The boys were at the vet yesterday. They had to get shots and go under anesthesia, get their teeth cleaned. It was kind of a rough day. They're happy to cuddle today. But we care about their health, so we take care of things like that. That concept will come up later. We care about the spiritual health of people within our fellowship and outside our fellowship, and so we want to do everything we can for their spiritual health. That'll be part of our talk about fellowship here. But let's talk about church fellowship now. I want to start with something. This is from a number of years ago, but there was an article in the travel section of the St. Paul Pioneer Press, one of the Twin Cities newspaper. They were doing a series on different little towns around Minnesota, and they did their feature on New Ulm. And in their feature on New Ulm, they mentioned Martin Luther College and said that the college is affiliated with the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod, a church body so conservative that they do not associate with other Lutherans or other denominations. That's what the article said. And I knew a number of WELS people here in town who were not very happy about that. One said they just don't get it. Nobody understands our teaching about fellowship. And another person was even going to write to the journalist and insist on some sort of a retraction or clarification in an upcoming issue of the newspaper. I thought the journalist is just reporting things the way they really are perceived. That we often are perceived as the people who stand off in a corner by ourselves and don't want to associate with anyone else. And of course, that's not really what we're wanting to or trying to convey with our teaching and practice of fellowship. So how do we overcome that? What is it we're trying to do actually? I think one way to understand this is that too often it can be something where the practice of fellowship is pursued with a negative standpoint or from a negative connotation. Kind of like a private members-only golf club that gives the feeling of pushing everyone else away. You are not welcome here. We do not want you here. No trespassing by others other than those who belong here. That, of course, is not what we mean to be saying, but I think that sometimes the impression can be given that that's what we're kind of about. What we're aiming for is more of an openness, a welcome, an invitation, that we want everyone to be with us. We want others to come into our family, to come into our home, that we want people to feel welcome with us. That's what fellowship is about. There's a closeness, there's an intimacy that we are hoping for others to enjoy along with us. And as you look at the scriptures, excuse me, that was the way that the Apostle John, who always referred to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved. He didn't want to put his own name in the books that he wrote in the Bible, but he referred to himself that way. He was dearly loved by Jesus, a friend of Jesus, and he knew that fellowship with Jesus. And he wrote to us, to the church, that which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we've seen with our eyes, which we've looked at and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared, we have seen it and testified to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim to you what we have seen and heard, so that you also may have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. We write this to make our joy and your joy complete. You notice how positive and inviting and wanting others to come together with him that message from John is. By the way, in that last sentence, I have our joy and your joy. If you look at Bible translations, you'll note that there's a variation there. Some manuscripts we have say our and others say your. I think that both of those meanings are contained within what John is getting at here, that this is about our joy, this is about your joy, this is our mutual joy when we can come together in that kind of Spirit-produced fellowship in our Lord Jesus Christ. So, having that kind of warm and welcoming environment does not mean that we don't have any standards or that we don't have any expectations of those who would come in and be part of our group with us. Welcoming places still have beliefs and practices that all are expected to observe. Let's use as an example now, instead of the private members-only country club that pushes others away, let's use a community recreation center. The public recreation center for a community where everyone is welcome. We want everyone in the community to come, to enjoy that facility, to become healthy there, to enjoy the pool and the workout equipment and all those things. But even in a place like that, there will still be beliefs and practices all are expected to observe, expectations that you have. No diving in the shallow end of the pool because you could hurt yourself. Or other kinds of expectations. If you came to the community swimming pool and did not wear an appropriate swimsuit, and you said, well, I'm a nudist, so I get to do this, that would not be appropriate, and you would be asked to leave, even though it's the community pool and it's open and it's welcoming. And so even in the church, if we are open and welcoming, that doesn't mean we have no standards or no expectations, but we're certainly welcoming and want people to understand what those standards and expectations are as they come to us and participate with us. But we want the overall feeling to be one of welcome and openness and invitation. I think that's something for us to consider when we also think about how we act toward others that are outside of our church. Maybe not those who are coming to us as visitors, whom we might like to involve and become one with us, as we were talking about in the other example. But what about persons who have other religious beliefs, who are members of other churches? What is our conduct toward them? What is our approach toward them? I think sometimes there, and I've seen this in some of our publications sometimes, where a comparison is used that, those false ideas that others hold in another religious organization, those are dangerous like a virus, like a disease, like an infection. And so we have to be careful about that because we don't want ourselves to get infected. And so we put up sort of barriers around ourselves because we're afraid of those false ideas creeping in amongst us. And I wonder if that's the right image to be giving off, that we put a bubble up, protective bubble around ourselves to stay safe from all those dangerous others out there in the world or in other churches. I wonder if there's another way to be looking at that. If you think even of something as dangerous as the Ebola virus, when there is a crisis in the world, when there is a disease, an infection, an epidemic going on, there are people who go to that crisis to help and to intervene. I think we could use the example of Doctors Without Borders, who will intervene in even something such as an Ebola pandemic. They'll take precautions. They'll make sure that they're not going to become infected themselves, but they're not going to leave other people out there in their infection when they have a way that they can help them. And I think that's a way for us to think also of how we might deal with others who are following a path of doctrine that we understand to be dangerous, that we know is risky. We're not going to try to get them into our congregations necessarily. That's not our goal. But we do care about their souls. And we heed the thoughts that Jesus' brother James said. My brothers and sisters, if one of you should wander from the truth and someone should bring that person back, remember this: whoever turns a sinner from the error of their way will save them from death and cover over a multitude of sins. So we want to be outgoing toward others and willing to have spiritual conversations with them, even if they are persons we're not seeking as some sort of evangelism prospect, but just a neighbor across the fence, maybe even a member of another church whom we share a concern for, and whom we want to encourage in the faith, rather than discourage by a standoffish sort of attitude on our part. I think ultimately we need to remember our confession, that we speak often in church on Sundays. I believe in the Holy Christian Church, the communion of saints. We don't have a confession that says, I believe only members of my church body are saved. We believe that those who look to Jesus Christ for their salvation, wherever they might be, whatever church they might belong to, in fact, are members of Christ's church. And so as we talk about our practice of fellowship, we don't want that to ever overshadow our confession that all those who follow the word of Christ and listen to him and trust in him are indeed his own people. And a willingness to at least interact with other persons in spiritual conversations is a good way of us showing that we do care about their spiritual life, and we're not just going to go off in a corner by ourselves and be that group of people that won't associate with anyone else. We are careful about things that we do as far as our formal fellowship practices, but we also want to convey at the same time that we care about the people who live around us, who practice Christian faith around us, perhaps in other groups and in other ways. So that brings us to the end of this Dog Talks episode. Hopefully there's been some illustration or clarification here that has been helpful to you, but we certainly can discuss more as we carry on with the coursework that we are pursuing. Thank you again for your attention. I want to say goodbye, boys. One final goodbye. Thank you for your fellowship with us in this little video exercise.